Life Audio.
Welcome to But Jesus Drank Wine.
And other stories that kept us stuck. I'm Mead.
And I'm Christy.
In this podcast, we'll explore the stories that kept us, stuck, wanting to drink and not wanting to drink, all at the same time.
Join us as we show you that freedom from alcohol does not have to mean a life sentence of misery and missing out,
but actually means living an authentic life full of peace, joy, and purpose.
Hello.
Good morning, friend.
Good morning, my friend. So these episodes are some of my favorite, and I think some of your favorite too, to record. We have a 10 best things episode for you today.
A listener favorite.
Listener fan fave. We have done a handful of these, and I'm going to put these in the show notes for you, sweet dear listener. Episode 15 was 10 best things about never having to drink again. Episode 32 was 10 things we no longer have to spend our money on now that we are alcohol free. Episode 74 was 10 things we wish someone had told us the first year. That's a really good one. And episode 89 is 10 reasons why living alcohol free has made us more confident. So I will put that for you gals in the show notes. And in case you like the style of this episode like we do, and you can go back and listen into those.
What's so fun about these episodes, these lists that we do, what I love is we do make a list ahead of time and we don't share it with each other ahead of time. So we're like sharing it live, and it's just really fun to see what things we have in common, what things you thought of that I didn't, and vice versa. And it always leads to just fun, and I think good stories too usually come from this. So it's one of my favorites to do, and we hear from y'all that it's kind of fun for you too. So here we go.
Yeah. So let's start by framing the question of what is moderation.
Yeah.
And I think that I was actually listening to a podcast with this amazing doctor from Harvard, which I posted in the community, talking about the health risks. And there are several different ways that moderation ends up getting defined, right? Which is like 1 or 2 glasses throughout the week can be, quote unquote, moderate drinking. 1 glass or 2 glasses a night for some could be considered moderate drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Or for some, and I mean, personally, I'm like, gosh, could that qualify as moderation? But I guess some people do, is 1 night where it's like a binge, but you don't drink 6 nights of the week and you go bananagrams on night 7. That can be considered a moderate amount of drinking.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, that's what I think is so interesting about when we talk about this word moderation and what it means. It's like, it is so subjective in a sense to the person. And so when somebody says like, so when I have a client who comes to me and says, I would love to be able to do the moderation thing. And I'm like, oh, great, let's work with that. We'll start there and see how you go. But first, let's define what moderation means to you, because to me, it might mean, like you're saying, and those are 3 very different definitions, if you will.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to get curious, like we always say. And if moderation is something that is appealing to you, get curious about how would you define moderation? What does that mean to you? Because like for me, before I found freedom from alcohol, before 2019, I would say I wasn't on this, I have to moderate. That's not what I was like consciously telling myself, but I was very much trying to moderate, which to me, the definition in my world was trying to find that line where I could enjoy my wine, but without crossing the line, without overindulging. So therefore, like not getting too silly, not being obviously buzzed or drunk, and then minimizing the after effect, right? The next morning. So like that moderation for me was like, as long as I can keep it in like within these like guardrails, which for the longest time was no drinking during the week and only on weekends or social occasions. And then it changed. And it was like my attempt to, as long as I don't cross this line, then I don't really have to do something about this thing. What was your definition? Like what would you use for yourself?
Well, I mean,
moderation.
and this is the thing, right? The line changed
Well, yeah.
The line
Mhm.
kept moving, and that's why we've done a whole episode on moderation and whether or not you think it can work for you, but the
Yeah.
line for me kept moving, and so sometimes it was I'm going to make sure I have 2 drinks, sometimes it was I'm gonna have water in between drinks,
Yeah.
sometimes it was I'm just gonna drink on weekends, and then, of course, that started on Thursday, always on Thursday. It just changed over time, right?
Yes.
Even my kind of switch from my nightly at home wine to my nightly at home ranch water was a version for me of moderating because I thought I can get the same buzz with less calories, less amount of liquid.
Yes,
But of
yes,
course,
yes.
those 2 ranch waters ended up being, really, 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 really mostly tequila with a splash of sparkling water, and it's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you're listening to this conversation, it would be helpful for you to probably define, like, what is moderation to you? What is even how do you define it? What does it mean to you? And then you can go back to that other episode where we talk about that, and today we'll get into the 10 best things about never having to moderate again because I didn't realize how much work was went into, air quote, moderating my drinking.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, 100%. Do you wanna start or do you want me to start?
Go for it. You start. Kick us off.
Okay, so I think let us start. I did this in no particular order, but I think
Mhm.
probably the main one, and I think you'll probably agree with this, the main kind of benefit of not having to moderate is the headspace. I
Oh,
mean, yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, because as we kind of just explained, right? It's this should I, shouldn't I, how many, like all the goalposts keep changing. And when you just take all of that off the table, and this is the benefit that we hear from our one-on-one clients, from the gals in the community, I think more than any other thing is
Yep.
when I took it off the table and didn't try to play this moderation game anymore, I just had so much more headspace, so much more mental real estate to actually focus on the things that really truly matter. And so that was my first and probably number one thing is that the guessing game, the trying to make space for if I'm drinking on Friday, I can't drink at that party on Saturday night. So what am I going to drink or what am I going to do? And blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah, 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 blah. It's too much.
I think we always say this too when we talk about this, but it's exhausting just talking about it. I can't believe that
Yeah.
I lived that for so long, but I did because I clearly was in that place of, like, not wanting to not drink and also wanting to not drink and wanting to drink and not it's like I just have so much, I don't know, compassion for myself being in that struggle, being stuck in that world and the exhaustion that it was
Yeah.
trying to, yeah, plan it and stay within that whatever moderation category I was in at the time. I totally agree, the headspace, that's number 1 on my list, and that goes with that is because it's the mental real estate that is occupied by the working so hard to moderate,
Yeah.
and then the mental gymnastics of, like you just said, of if I do it's like the flipping around, if I drink here, then I'm not gonna drink there, and it's like, why? Like, why did we put
Yeah.
ourselves through that? And that's where and how much time is spent doing that. I will always, forever and a day, I repeat this over and over again, but it wasn't just the time that I was actually physically drinking that was taken up so much, occupied by alcohol. It was this kind of mental gymnastics around the moderation. I never started my when I opened the bottle of wine at 5 o'clock on a weekday or on a weekend with friends or whatever, I never had in my mind that, like, my goal was to overdo it, drink too much. It was always, like, with "moderation," quote, unquote, in mind, and that was exhausting. So, the one of the probably the best thing, truly one of them, top ones, is the time and the headspace that is freed up by not having to play the moderation game. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. And I think just a special note, if you're listening, this is not us ever coming from a place of self-righteousness or anything like that, because I think sometimes when people are listening to people that are free, and you probably, if you've been in the secular sober verse space for a minute, like it can feel like this. We really truly believe, like, we know how you feel because we've been there and we operated from that point, and we can't believe that that's how we were living our daily life. But if you feel like that, we have so much compassion for you because we know what that feels like. We
Yeah.
know what that feels like. It's
And
just, and you don't have to stay there. Like, you
yeah.
don't have to stay in that place where you feel like you're having to do this all the time. There is so much hope for you on the other side of this. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I love that because when we were stuck in it, and maybe this is the listener too, like I thought I was the only one that was in this world doing having this whole back in my head conversation around my alcohol and like how to like keep it within these lines and all of this stuff. I thought I was the only one. And
Yeah.
in my peer group, I thought, it looked like I was. I don't know if that's true or not, but also if you're someone that is experiencing that, that's what's so great about these conversations and the conversations we have in our community. You realize that like you're not the only one. And
Yeah.
that's just the insidious nature of alcohol, right? We have tons of episodes on that as well, like what alcohol actually does as an addictive substance, and that it makes us want, the more we drink it, the more we want to drink it, which then for me, the tighter grip I had on trying to quote unquote moderate it, because the desire for it was growing as I was drinking it more, but simultaneously this like push pull of, but I don't want to be overdoing it. I don't want to be drinking this much. So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, there's a lot to that, but we see you, we hear you, like we're with you.
Yeah. What's next on your list?
Next on my list is I'm so glad that I don't ever have to do the whole like breaking that promise thing too when it came to like when I was trying to moderate, which I was for so long, I invariably failed at all of my moderation attempts at times. Like sometimes I could keep it in between the lines, but a lot of times I couldn't. And that takes up so much space and so much time and so much energy when I'm like, oh, well, I was just going to have 2 glasses of wine tonight at this thing. And then now I'm waking up the next morning and I'm like, wait, how much did we actually drink? It definitely wasn't 2 glasses. And so now the blame and shame cycle starts, and then the whole like vow to I'm not going to do this tonight, and then that whole cycle. And I think that's one of the things, and it fits with like willpower when we talk about like changing your relationship to alcohol and using just like that willpower base. Moderation kind of goes into this too. Like invariably at some point you're not going to follow through maybe with what you had set out for, and that's going to create a whole new level of discomfort and almost make it well, not almost, but make it much harder not to do the thing that you're trying to keep in between these lines. And so for me, it's that like, I don't ever have to do that, broken my vow or my promise to only have this or to only drink here or whatever, and to just be disappointed in myself. That, oh, the worst feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I think that we touched on that on the confidence episode of when
Hmm.
you are in a space where you're not breaking your promises to yourself all the time, you
Yeah.
become a more confident woman, and you also step into the woman. You get to have that invitation, that opportunity to step into the woman that God wants you to be because you just have the ability, the capacity to do that. And also when you said, I'm not waking up thinking how much did I drink last night? I feel like that needs to be a benefit on its own.
Yeah.
Because how many times did I wake up and say, "Oh my gosh, how much did I drink last night?" and have absolutely no idea. And those are on the nights that I was like trying to keep it cute and trying to moderate, and also on the nights where I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh no, this was going to be, as they say in the UK, a session. How much did I drink last night?" Saying those words right now make literally my stomach flipped because
Hmm.
I can remember how that felt like in the morning, and it's just, you don't have to stay there. You don't have to stay there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so much better when you don't have to be, yeah, stuck in all of that. So, what is next on your list?
So this kind of goes along with the last two ones that we said,
Hmm.
but I wrote down no longer having to outsmart alcohol by trying to stop after 2. And
Yeah.
this is one of
Yeah.
those things, and I know I've mentioned the Diageo ad on here before, but I'm gonna talk about it again because to me it is so bonkers, right? Because big alcohol knows that we're all wising up, because big alcohol knows of all the health risks, even to moderate drinkers, they're, like, trying to pay damage control. And so I think it was like
Yep.
last Christmas, maybe. I reposted it on my Instagram. So if anybody wants to dig through, I did screen record it and post it because I found it so shocking. But the campaign was about moderate drinking. And so the campaign was after you have one of our Diageo drinks, whatever it is, whatever beer it is, or whatever, because they have the whole line of it, have a glass of water. And then after you have another drink, you can have something to eat. And I'm like, this is the game that we have all been playing with ourselves for so many years. But what they're not saying, which is the truth of it all, is that that is impossible because when you've had your first drink, it takes away your ability
Yep.
to access your prefrontal cortex where you make smart decisions. And so it is really, really hard to outsmart alcohol,
Yeah.
right? Like we can't do it. Like we
Yeah.
can't outsmart this addictive drug that is literally designed to hijack our brains. And so that was one of those things that I was like, oh my gosh, that is amazing. I never have to figure out how to outsmart an addictive drug again.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet I tried to
Oh, yeah.
many
Me too.
times. I know. And it's just so funny that, like, if you think about any other addictive substance, who tries to moderate their cocaine use or who tries to like moderate
Yeah.
their heroin, who tries to like, we're not even having conversations about moderating any other addictive substance because that is asinine. It's asinine. You cannot moderate an addictive substance. Okay. So what's next? Is it my turn?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I just said, this is like an aside. Hello, this is a big one. Space for Jesus and his gifts.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, I guess the thing that I always come back to Dr. Kurt Thompson, MD, and his brilliant things that he says. But the things that we think about are like, we become what we think about. I guess that's the best way of saying it. We become what we think about. And when my thoughts were so wrapped up and distracted by trying to moderate alcohol because I was just so painfully aware of the space that it was occupying in my life. And then, so once I was aware of the space it was occupying in my life and the time it was taking up, then I'm putting more time to thinking about it, trying to moderate it. So it's taking up even more time, which
Yeah.
means I have less time to think about important things and the things that
Yeah.
I really should be thinking about or want to think about, like Jesus and the things that he has waiting for me at every turn. For instance, we just planted this wildflower garden and it has been so much. I never thought I'd be so excited to see a bunch of wildflowers growing outside of my window. But to me, that is like one of the greater gifts that not having to play the moderation game, finding freedom from alcohol has given me, is to be able to see where like the things that he's providing for me in these little things like wildflowers or little moments. And I wasn't thinking about Jesus. I wasn't focused on Jesus. The amount of time I was thinking about him or focused on faith was like a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction because there was no room, because my thinking and my world was so wrapped up in moderating alcohol and all of that, our social life and all that went with that. So just the space for Jesus and his little gifts, like the sunsets and the wildflower gardens and the little, just the sun or the rain, just the things in nature that I had I didn't have no appreciation for before. I just didn't appreciate as something the Lord was blessing me with or providing. I didn't have the mental capacity to even consider those things.
That's so, so good. So, so good. So good, so true. Imagine stepping into a vibrant, welcoming community where faith, friendship, and freedom from alcohol come together. That's exactly what you'll find inside the But Jesus Drank Wine community.
Each week, our members gather for connection calls, a time to share honestly, grow spiritually, and support one another in a warm, grace-filled space.
And for women who are already free from alcohol, we offer a monthly connection call just for you, a space to stay grounded in your faith, share your victories, and continue growing in freedom.
With a loving leadership team, a dedicated prayer request board, and connection opportunities across every time zone, you never have to walk this journey alone.
We also offer masterclasses with expert guests, optional book and Bible studies, and so much more to help you grow in your faith and strengthen your sobriety.
For those ready to go even deeper, our small group coaching space, The Missing Piece, offers weekly recorded coaching calls and personalized support for women committed to breaking free from alcohol.
Whether you're sober curious or years alcohol-free, if you love Jesus or want to fall in love with him again, you'll feel seen, supported, and strengthened here.
Ready to join the sisterhood? Head over to butjesusdrinkwine.com/community or click the link in the show notes to learn more. We can't wait to meet you.
The one that I had next on my list was not having to worry about the health risks of even moderate drinking. And so it's really funny because we're like living in this space where we talk about alcohol all the time, constantly reading about it, all these things. We know so much, but what I always forget when I'm talking to someone that's new to this world or just hasn't ever even read or heard anything, although I'm not sure how you could do that in our current day and age because there's so much information now, but there are some health risks of even moderate drinking, and those are increased cancer risk. It's directly linked to breast cancer. It is really, really harmful for the gray and white matter in our brain. It's not good for our heart, which there was massive propaganda coming from big alcohol saying that it was good for our heart. That's been debunked. And I think that when people hear like, oh, there is health risks to drinking, everyone probably understands that there's some health risks to drinking. But what we're learning more and more of is that there are some serious health risks to just moderate drinking. And so not having to worry about any of that is a really, really big benefit because it doesn't really matter how much you're drinking. There's so much information, science, doctor, World Health Organization. They've all said that if you want to do what's best for your health, no amount of alcohol is the best way to go. And so I think that's just such a gift. Like when you are done with moderating, you don't even have to think about any of that being a factor.
Yeah, I remember when I learned that alcohol is ethanol, which is the same thing that goes in our gas tanks. I remember thinking, "Oh my gosh, I just had no idea." And no amount of that could be good if I'm putting that same substance in my body. But the noise had to get a little bit louder before I could actually do something about that too at the same time, because it wasn't just that alone that I was able to go, okay, yeah, I know it's bad for me. And so now think of all the things that like I do in a day's time that I'm like, oh yeah, this is probably not the best thing for me, but I'm doing it anyway. So yeah, that's such a good one. It's just such a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that when sometimes I'll hear people say, well, everything gives you cancer. And it's no, alcohol is actually in a very different class, right? It is a class 1 carcinogen. It's just like tobacco and asbestos. Like it's that toxic. And so it's one of these things of rewiring all those stories that we've told ourselves that it's somehow going to be fine because everything is bad for us. And that's not true. It's in a class onto its own. So yeah.
Yep. Agreed. It's a good one.
What do you have next on your list?
I have money saved. I mean, when I'm not
Oh, that's my
moderating.
next one too. Ding, ding,
Yeah.
ding.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the money saved. And that goes in general, right? When you're free from alcohol, I think it was like $800 a month that we were spending like as a family, but it was Todd and I who were drinking it obviously. I was thinking of like my family budget and like $800 for the family. No, $800 for 2 of us. But like, yeah, that's a lot of money. And so whether that was heavier on one end or lighter as I was trying to moderate, I don't have to spend that money on alcohol anymore. And that is one of the greatest things about not having to moderate is even having a little bit going to big alcohol, to the pockets of the people that are trying to, yeah, pull the wool over our eyes around it.
Yeah, yeah. That was the one that was actually next on my list as well. And as you said, like it all adds up. It all adds up, even if it is just like 1 or 2 bottles a week, even if it's a
Mhm.
quote unquote moderate, whatever that means amount, it obviously adds up.
Yeah.
The next on my list is no increased cortisol and adrenaline from quote unquote
Yes.
moderate drinking slash less stress. And
Mhm.
so
I
this
had
is
that
one
one.
of those like fast, crazy facts that I was just like, wait, what? Alcohol, even a 1 glass stays in your system for 7 to 10 days, right? And that includes an increased cortisol and adrenaline,
Yep.
also destroys your sleep, but that means less stress. And so even if you're drinking a moderate amount, it is contributing to increased stress. And those things are going to seem harder, more stressful, all of that stuff. And so even drinking a moderate amount, like we don't have to worry about
Mhm.
that, which is amazing.
Yeah, that was such an eye-opening one for me too when I learned that alcohol stays in your system for as long as it does because even when my drinking was at its like most minimum, I can so clearly see that yeah, the amount of stress and then the more I drank, the stress I drank one of the stories I had is that wine helped me relax, it helped me de-stress. And when I learned the truth of that, that even a moderate amount, so to speak, increases your cortisol and keeps you in that place of like hyper arousal, that, amped up place more. It's no wonder that I felt so tightly wound and I felt like I needed something to help me unwind, but it was the very thing that was feeding that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's such a good one. I had that on my list as well. The stress, so much stress just from the
Yeah.
chemical and the thinking about and in all the ways.
Yeah. It ends up putting you on that hamster wheel,
Yep.
right? Of like, I'm stressed out, so I'm gonna have a glass of wine, but the glass of wine actually makes you more stressed out. And then you have a glass of wine to de-stress. And then
Yep.
you're just like on that constant loop, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Where like one of mine was this the simple pleasures. And I mean that kind of goes back to and it all fits together with this, but like I love how the simple pleasures are I mean, just talking about my little wildflower garden, like, it's the simple things that now bring me joy that I can see and be excited about in a new way because I don't have alcohol in any amount in my system that is hijacking or dysregulating my cortisol and adrenaline and the stress hormones. Yeah, I mean, it's a puzzle that all fits together, I think, and when you're stuck in that place, like, you just don't have that access to maybe those simple things, and so I love that not only is my mind not burdened by the stress at all, my body is not burdened by the stress at all, which allows me to then just appreciate the simple things.
Yeah. Yeah. And like on the other side of that too, right? Is when we're hijacking our dopamine and being
Yeah.
flooded with that
Mm,
counteracting chemical dynorphin, then you're also not able to access the joy in the same way, right?
yep.
And so less stress, more joy. Hashtag
Yes.
less stress, more joy.
Yes. Hashtag so true and so good. Yeah.
So good, so true.
So good. What
Yeah.
else do you have?
Is it my turn? No more social pressure, having to think about what to say. This is something that we end up coaching, I think, a lot for gals at the beginning of their journey of, okay, what are you going to say when you're going to I just did this week, gal going to her first barbecue, not drinking. What am I going to say? People are going to ask me. I'm always the one drinking. The one bringing these cocktails. And when you are no longer a drinker, you don't get those questions anymore. Nobody asks, and it's really nice.
My gosh, so true. There's so
Yeah.
much freedom in that. Yep. Well, and I feel like too when it there was and it probably was just my perception, but I felt like people were paying more attention to me when I was really like actively in that moderation phase of, okay, I'm trying to do something about this and I've maybe kind of shared it, or I'm not drinking like I normally do. And and so like people could, there was more attention on me in that way, the attention that I didn't want.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you
so
think that that is true, or do you think that was a perception, or do you
I
think that's a
don't know.
combination?
I don't know. It for sure felt like it. But to
Yeah.
your point, like nobody asks nobody asks anymore.
Yeah.
Nobody like once you're free from it, once it's because it was different. So if it's, oh, well, meat is, she always has the Chardonnay, but I've got my, no, I'm just doing this like little ranch water situation tonight instead. You're like, well, why? Well, because, I'm just trying to not drink as much, or I'm just trying this differently, or whatever. Then it does feel like there's more attention, but probably because that's just, it was so painful. And I don't know that people really even cared unless they were someone that was questioning their relationship with alcohol too. Then they probably did care, but it wasn't about me, it was about them. So yeah.
100%. 100%. I would definitely say that if you feel like somebody is paying more attention, it's because of what's going on in their own mind about their own drinking. And I know I've said this on this podcast at least 100 times, but
Mhm.
it's the holding up the mirror thing. And I know that to be true because I've been in both. Been in
Yes.
both. I write about this in the book somewhere, right? Where I just had lunch with her today. I gave her such a hard time about her not drinking when she wanted to take a break. But it
Mhm.
was because I was so concerned about my own drinking. Okay, I'm tangenting. It's
It's
your
good,
turn.
it's good. What else do I have? I said this in the beginning, I'll say it again. It's just a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and it
A lot
reminds
of
me
work.
of Dr. Lee's, I think it's Commandment 7, like, making an operation out of everything.
Yeah.
Like, the moderation game makes an operation out of everything,
Yeah.
and that's where when you're doing when you are committing to a fast, like with Christy's book, the 40-day fast, when you're just taking it off the table and you're just seeing what life could be like without alcohol, there's just such a freedom in that because it doesn't feel like an operation anymore because you're not trying to control it in all of these ways. And that's one of the things that stands out to me for sure is it's just it doesn't have to be an operation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. That's so, so true. I remember telling this story. It was maybe 2 or 3 years alcohol free, and I was getting ready to go out to a Christmas party or a birthday party or something, and I was getting my hair done, and as I was sitting there, I was my literally the thought came to my head, "I really should eat something to coat my stomach," and I was like, "Huh?" Like, it was like a voice that came out of
Yes.
nowhere. I'm like, "I don't need to do that anymore," but it just reminded me
Yes.
of all the thinking, right? All the operation. It's like all the thing that I had to make sure that I was gonna do, whether it was a moderate night or a wild and banana night, it was yeah, make sure you drink water, make sure you have something in your stomach, especially carbs, because
You gotta base up.
otherwise it's gonna go straight to your head, and oh my gosh, yeah,
Mhm. Yep.
yeah,
It doesn't have to be that anymore.
it doesn't have to be that anymore.
What else you got?
So oh, I think we already said this one, greater confidence. Confidence coming from
Uh-huh.
knowing you're in control of your choices. Yeah,
Mhm.
that one we said.
So good.
I guess the next one then is I think that when you no longer have to moderate, when you are when you are going from this transition from a moderate drinker to a non-drinker, you get well, there's so many important lessons. That could be
Mhm.
another episode, all the lessons we learned, but one of the ones that I
Yes.
think is so great for this in particular is you have really truly, at least I did, learned how to set and communicate and hold to my boundaries. When you don't have to moderate anymore and you know that you just want to go in and be a non-drinker, you learn what works for you and what doesn't work for
Mhm.
you when you want to be home, what you want to drink, what how much small talk that you can actually physically handle, what
Yes.
invitations that you actually don't have to go to, because let me just tell you now, my sweet friend, you do not have to go to every party you're invited to. That was something that was a really big benefit of this shift from moderating to being a non-drinker is I really learned how to set boundaries and how to stand by them and how to communicate them.
Yeah, that's so good.
Your turn.
I wrote down just the joy and the laughter that I thought when I was moderating, I thought when I was stuck in the drinking cycle that I needed wine, I needed alcohol for joy and laughter and good times, and that has been one of the greatest gifts of freeing that mental space, of freeing rebalancing my physiology without alcohol in my body, with having that space and time now for the Lord and joy and laughter, like true joy and true laughter. My my daughter, she just had an abdominal surgery, and I I knew that one of the greatest things about being free from alcohol, about not being stuck in this moderation space anymore, was that joy and laughter was very, like, more accessible. I didn't realize how much we as a family laugh until my daughter's home from the hospital and she from abdominal surgery, and it hurts her to laugh. And so over the past however long it's been, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, the amount of laughter in my family that wasn't there when I was so distracted and so focused on trying to keep one foot in my wine world and one foot in trying to be the mom that I wanted to be and trying to balance that out." I didn't realize until now how much more available that is to us now that I'm not stuck in that cycle, and that has been one of the greatest gifts of not being on that moderation world, is just the joy and the laughter. And of course that fits with being with Jesus more, spending more time with him. That's when my thoughts are now the thoughts that I used to have and spend time trying to moderate alcohol, now they're on Jesus. Like, of course, one of those fruit is going to be joy, right? It's going to be peace. It's going to be patience. It's going to be the fruit of the spirit. That's a big one that has been really magnified for me recently.
I love that. I love that. My last one is better example for our kiddos, for our children.
Oh, yeah.
And
Mhm.
the
I
reason that I put that here too is because
Yeah.
I think that even if you are a moderate drinker, um,
Mm.
we had Jessica Leahy, who is an incredible researcher and journalist, talk about, and I just heard another incredible doctor from UPenn talk about this. There's more and more information that says the earlier that kids start drinking, the more likely they're going to have a problem with alcohol use disorder as they grow up, because you basically start drinking and you drink more and more and more as you age. So the delay, the best thing that we can do, right, is to delay it for as long as possible. And so this is not me saying this. This is a ton of science doctors, researchers have said this. And
Mhm.
it's so, so interesting to me. But I think the fact that we don't have alcohol hanging around the house now, even in a moderate way,
Yep.
allows me to be a better parent, allows me to, like, be in alignment when I tell them, which, by the way, like, we could do a whole episode on this, but, like, I have completely flip-flopped from, I would like them to be just in my house and I will buy it so they are safe and I can look after them, all of that, to, like, no, like, you shouldn't drink if you're under the legal age. And I'm able to hold that as for all the health reasons and say it with a confident face and a confidence being their mother of, I I know that this isn't gonna be the best for you. And also I know what it looks like to have alcohol use disorder and be on that spectrum and how that's not fun. And so I just think that this allows us to be, yeah, for me to be a better example for them.
Yeah, I skipped over this. I Until you said that, I was like, "Wait a minute, I have that breaking the intergenerational, like, patterns, not ingraining
Yeah,
in our kids that it's okay, because less than what we say is more
what we
powerful what
do.
we do."
Yeah.
And funny story, Crawford and some friends, Crawford's 15, he went to a concert recently, and he was just telling the story of, like, how there were all of these, like, drunk people around him, drunk kids even, underage drinkers, and vaping and all of the stuff. It was outdoor, like, at the amphitheater outdoor concert, and he was just it was funny because he was talking about it from the standpoint of not having really been exposed to that. And because the way he was telling the story, we were just all having a great little laugh about it because to me, the takeaway was he doesn't remember when that was part of his normal, that when we were drinking regularly, when we had it in the house, when we had friends over all the time, when we were this revolving door, he doesn't remember. That was only 6 years ago, but that is not what he's remembered. He's remembered these last 6 years where alcohol is not present. And so he's out there at this concert. He hasn't been in that environment in 6 years. He's at this concert with his friends, and a lot of people around him are drinking and being silly, and he's like seeing it firsthand as a 15-year-old and like a fish out of water, like, what is happening? Whereas some of his friends who were with him were like, yeah, this is normal. But I think to your point, it's something that, and it was one of those moments where I was just like, oh my gosh, like I am so grateful to be able to see this and have that be his reality. So I also want to say, for anyone who's listening that has that regret of like the time spent, I know we have a lot of clients that get stuck in that like regret space. It can be rewired. It can change. He doesn't remember. He should remember that he wasn't teeny tiny when my life looked like that. But yeah, it just was one of those moments. I was like, oh yeah, it's because it's not part of his normal anymore to be around alcohol, to see alcohol or see people acting differently after they've been drinking. And so I was really grateful for that. That is definitely one of the greatest gifts too.
I love that. I'm all done with my list.
Same.
Oh, that was so fun, babe.
So
that was so
good.
So fun.
I'm so glad we don't ever have to moderate ever again.
Yeah. Should we do a Tina?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I think a Tina could be open and curious about perhaps life not having to moderate might just be better than life moderating, right?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, so true. Is it possible that life without having to moderate, could you have more time? Could you have more energy? Could you sleep better? Could you have less stress?
Yeah.
Be open to it.
Yeah.
And what would you do if that was true? What would you do with that time and that energy?
Yeah.
If so.
Yeah. So good. If
So
you
good.
want to continue the conversation with us, then please hop into the community. We would love to meet you and chat with you. It's where we continue these conversations. And if you are thinking about taking a break from alcohol, we are going to be running a 40-day fast in September. We're already going to start taking signups because we know from last year this one gets very, very busy. So we'll also put a link to that in the show notes. We're going to start coaching through the Love Life Sober 40-day fast on September 8th. So if you want to sign up and start to get to know some of the gals in the community before you start your fast, you can do that. All the information will be right down there. And we are so excited to get to meet you if we haven't already. See you next Monday. Before we go, if you're craving real connection and want to talk more about what we've shared today, come join us in the BJDW community. It's where these conversations continue, and we'd love to welcome you in.
You can find all of our podcast episodes at butjesusdrankwine.com. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at butjesusdrankwine.
Take a screenshot of this episode and share it with a friend or two.
Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you love what we're doing, we'd be so grateful if you left a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Your reviews help more women who feel stuck and alone in the overdrinking cycle find the hope and encouragement they've been praying for.
Finally, we'd love to shout out the incredible team at Life Audio for their partnership with us at the But Jesus Drank Wine podcast. We invite you, dear listener, to visit lifeaudio.com, where you will find dozens of other faith-centered podcasts in the Life Audio network. Shows about prayer, Bible study, Christian parenting, and more.
Thanks, friend. We appreciate you so much, and we'll see you next week.